Hello everyone, my name is Andrea Colombo. I'm the Engagement, Information and Project Manager at the COMNAP Secretariat. It is my great pleasure to welcome you all to the 20th COMNAP Symposium on Antarctic Innovations and Collaborations. In regards to Antarctic cooperation, there has been much innovation, some simple and often overlooked, including improvements in facility design and advancement in clothing, some more complicated, from our understanding of addressing environmental impact to increased focus of safety in operations, to development of sophisticated science support systems and communications, to traverse capabilities and use of remote sensing. Increased collaboration has allowed programs to work together on large research projects, some of which would not have been possible through one program action and support alone. Innovation have allowed to turning problems into progress. I'm honored to introduce our esteemed keynote speaker, Professor Deneb Karentz, professor at the University of San Francisco and SCAR Vice President for Science. During their address, our keynote speaker will showcase the collaborative effort that very successfully brought together COMNAP and SCAR on a range of projects, including the SCAR Horizon Scan in 2014 and the COMNAP Antarctic Roadmap Challenges in 2016. Furthermore, the NAP will highlight how the Scientific Committee on Antarctic Research works, providing also an historical overview from its establishment in 1958, continuing the international scientific cooperation that was an hallmark of the International Geophysical Year, to present days. Without further ado, I leave the virtual floor to Professor Deneb Karentz.
Hello, everyone. My name is Deneb Karentz. I'm the SCAR Vice President for Science, and I'm a professor at the University of San Francisco. I'm very sorry that I'm not there in person to make this presentation, but I very much appreciate the opportunity of being invited to this symposium on Antarctic Innovation and Collaborations to talk to you a little bit about the Scientific Committee on Antarctic Research. I know that most of you are aware of SCAR, but I'm going to take this time to kind of talk a little bit in depth about how SCAR is organized and hopefully provide you with a better appreciation of how SCAR works. So SCAR is an interdisciplinary body. We fall under the International Science Council, and SCAR was established in 1958 as an outgrowth of the International Geophysical Year. At that time, in 1957, 1958, there were 12 countries who were doing research in the Antarctic, and they recognized how important it was that they had scientific collaborations and cooperations in this very extreme environment. And so they decided that this would be a very good thing to continue beyond IGY so that research in the Antarctic could be very effective. From those 12 countries in 1958, we now have 55 members in SCAR, 46 countries, and 9 of the International Science Council unions. I wanted to also make a note that the Antarctic Treaty came the year after SCAR. So the same 12 countries that started SCAR in the following year put together the Antarctic Treaty. And so SCAR and the Antarctic Treaty have had a very close relationship during more than the past 60 years. The mission for SCAR is twofold. We provide science leadership. One of the things that SCAR does is it brings together scientists from different countries who are interested in working in the Antarctic and provides a place where they can talk, discuss, develop collaborations, and we can facilitate research at the international level in the Antarctic and the Southern Ocean. The second part of SCAR's mission is to provide scientific advice. And we do this primarily to the Antarctic Treaty System and also to other bodies like the IPCC that might request information from us. So how do we go about accomplishing our mission? Like most other organizations, we have a lot of meetings. There's a biennial delegates meeting and science group business meetings. We also have science meetings and workshops that are at various levels. Organizationally, we have the Open Science Conference that's held every 2 years with the delegates meeting. We have a biology symposium and an earth sciences symposium that are held alternately every 4 years. And then there are a lot of subsidiary groups that organize their own meetings and workshops throughout the year. We participate in the annual Antarctic Treaty Consultative Meeting, and we have a lot of partnerships with international organizations that have interests in the Antarctic and the Southern Ocean. And you can see this little graphic here. There's a lot of acronyms, which many should be familiar to you, but we have a lot of interfacing with those groups as well. I wanted to make a special note about most of the work that gets done for SCAR is through the Antarctic science community, and these are all volunteers. We do have a secretariat with paid positions, but the bulk of the science and the work that's done for SCAR for us in order for us to accomplish our mission is done by volunteers. And I think that that's a very important thing to keep in mind. I'm going to show you the next slide, which is our organizational chart, and it's really quite complicated, but I'm going to walk you through it, so please don't panic when you see all these colors. So this is how SCAR is organized, and I like to show this image because even though people may know SCAR, oftentimes they really don't have a sense of how many different moving pieces there are. So we do have a lot of subsidiary groups that fall under our umbrella. So I'd like to take just a little time and kind of talk about the different things on this organizational chart so that you have a better understanding and appreciation of what SCAR is and what SCAR can do. So we have here up at the top the delegates. The delegates are appointed by national committees. And from the delegates is elected a president and 4 vice presidents. And you can see the different 4 vice president positions here. I've listed the executive committee on this side. And then we do have the secretariat in Cambridge. And here's a list of the people that are working in the secretariat. Below this group, we have the science groups: geosciences, life sciences, physical sciences. Those committees are also made up of representatives who are delegated or appointed by national committees. All of the other boxes on here are people who are volunteering to work in various subsidiary groups. So again, just to take you on a quick walk through this, the science groups: geosciences, life sciences, physical sciences, these are permanent committees. This is where all of the information from the subsidiary groups are collected, and the science groups are responsible for collating that information, sifting through it, making a lot of decisions on what the next areas of scientific research should be in the Antarctic, and then establishing subgroups to address specific topics within those science interests. A lot of what goes on at SCAR is from the bottom up. So we have these expert groups and action groups, and these are essentially put together by scientists who have identified some specific area that needs attention, and then they collect other like-minded individuals who are interested in that topic, and they get to work deciding what kinds of research needs to be done, collecting information on research that's already been completed, and then coming up with new ideas of what kinds of things we could look at. The expert groups and action groups are quite varied. They cover many different things. If you go to the SCAR website, you can click on any of these boxes and it will take you to the web page for that particular group. I just wanted to point out one group, one expert group we have, because this is a joint group with COMNAP, the Human Biology and Medicine group. This committee was put together in 2004, combining the 2 separate committees from the 2 organizations. And as you're all aware, this is a very important group. They do very important work. They relay information about, COVID, monkeypox, avian flu, and they provide a lot of expert advice that's very important for both SCAR and COMNAP to be able to have and work with. We have a number of standing committees. They're shown in these blue boxes up towards the top on the right and the left. And we have Antarctic data management, Antarctic geographic information and finance. There's a standing committee on social science and humanities, which develops and coordinates research in that area for the Antarctic. And then we have a standing committee on the Antarctic Treaty. And this is the group that collates all the information from SCAR and puts forth the working papers, information papers, and background papers that go to the treaty every year. We also have a number of joint initiatives. Those are down here in this corner. SOOS, Southern Ocean Observing System, is a joint initiative with the Scientific Committee on Oceanic Research. Integrating Climate and Ecosystem Dynamics is also with SCORE, and as well with the International Geosphere Biosphere Program. And then we have the Southern Ocean Decade Task Force. This is a coalition of organizations that are interested in the Southern Ocean, and were put together by SCAR to develop a plan for the UN Decade of Ocean Science for Sustainable Development. The task force has actually produced a Southern Ocean Action Plan, and this essentially lays out all the gaps that we need to fill in order to really understand what's happening in the Southern Ocean relative to the challenges that have been set out by the UN Decade of Ocean Science. We are currently in the process of establishing a Decade Collaborative Center, and this would serve to coordinate all of the UN Decade activities and projects that are related to the Southern Ocean. And there's already a fair number of these that have been approved by the United Nations Decade of Ocean Science program. And so we will now be able to coordinate these activities across the Southern Ocean. The last set of boxes here, these orange ones on the left, represent our scientific research programs. The scientific research programs are our flagship research initiatives. These three that are listed here are the ones that are currently in place: near-term variability and prediction of the Antarctic climate system, instabilities and thresholds in Antarctica, integrated science to inform Antarctic and Southern Ocean conservation. These scientific research programs last for about 6 years or so, and then they either morph into something new or we get entirely new programs that get proposed. Again, these are all coming from the bottom up, so they're grassroots efforts to develop the science plan for the next big questions in Antarctic science. And they will go through a review process. They have formal proposals. They will go to the various science groups, and then from the science groups, they get sent up to the delegates for final approval. A new thing for SCAR is our strategic plan. This was just released. This was just released recently, and we have no change in our mission. The mission of SCAR has stayed the same since the beginning, but we have refined a number of things, and you can see the cover of the strategic plan there on the left, and then the 7 main issues on the right that are being focused on. The new strategic plan actually has a very big emphasis on climate, and so that's something that SCAR has always been interested in and that we will continue to be a part of. There's also a big component in SCAR. We have an initiative for equality, diversity, and inclusion, and so we have several groups that are working on that. And I'm also happy to say that we have a COMNAP representative who works on those committees with us. And so we have a lot that's being done in that arena as well. On the climate issue, one of the things that SCAR has done is put together a climate report. The Antarctic Climate Change and the Environment Report is something that has been around for quite a while. We do an annual update for this report, and then about every 10 years there's a major revision. And the last major revision was in 2022. You can download this report from the SCAR website, And the infographic that you see here is just summarizing all the different kinds of things that are included in the ACCE report. Another thing coming up is the 5th International Polar Year. So in 2021, we conducted a community survey to kind of gauge interest in having a 5th IPY. This was endorsed by the SCAR delegates in September of 2022, and we issued a public release statement with IASC in December of 2022, and so currently plans are underway to develop the 5th International Polar Year. For things that are going on in SCAR, whether it's the UN Ocean Decade or International Polar Year, a lot of this is being guided by a horizon scan that was conducted by SCAR about 10 years ago. And this horizon scan, again, was a very big process. It involved a lot of community input, and it identified 6 priorities for Antarctic science. Defining the global reach of the Antarctic atmosphere and Southern Ocean, understanding ice sheet mass balance, revealing Antarctica's history, understanding how life evolved and survived in the Antarctic, how to use the Antarctic as a platform for observing things in space, and then recognizing and mitigating human influences. The SCAR Horizon Scan actually led into the COMNAP Antarctic Roadmap Challenges. And so this is a document that came out 2 years later and identified 4 key challenges: extraordinary logistics requirements and access, technology, infrastructure and access, and international collaboration. And I probably should have said this earlier, but I think one of the things that's very important to point out is that collaborations between SCAR and COMNAP have been very successful. And so I think this is something that we can build on and something that we have a good, strong foundation for. And having the COMNAP view on how things need to get done in order for us to accomplish the science that we want to have is a very important aspect of what SCAR does. I kind of took the horizon scan and the roadmap challenges and distill them down even more to just come up with a few bullet points here of what I think are the important things for us to keep in mind in terms of future collaborations for Antarctic research activities. So as I mentioned, SCAR is always looking to find out how we should prioritize research questions. And we do this not only through the scientific research programs, but through all of the subsidiary groups. Funding of research is always a big issue. Finding money for these activities is always a challenge, and I think COMNAP very much appreciates that. One of the things I would like to note is that national Antarctic programs all operate in different ways. And this is a really big challenge in terms of trying to coordinate large-scale international science initiatives. In some cases, national programs actually have staff scientists who are doing the research in the Antarctic. And in other cases, at the other end, you'll have situations where national Antarctic programs are relying on scientists at universities and institutes to submit proposals, which need to go through a review process in order to be funded for Antarctic research activities. And so these differences do create an issue when it comes to trying to develop international programs and get them off the ground in a timely manner. And of course, the other thing that comes into that is coordination of logistics. And again, I think for the most part, this has been done really well. And I think that the interactions between SCAR and COMNAP can only improve that over what we already have. And then finally, just trying to make it more effective the way in which research results are actually presented to policymakers. And we have the Antarctic Environments Portal, and we have our connection with the Antarctic Treaty System. These are ways in which we are working to make that process more effective. So again, I think SCAR and COMNAP have done very well in the past. It's been a very long association. I think continued collaborations with joint meetings. Unfortunately, the 2020 joint meeting was canceled because of the pandemic. But we have a 2024 meeting coming up in Chile, and I believe that there are plans underway to make that a joint meeting, and I hope that that will work out. I think we should continue exploring ways in which joint committees would be a useful way to move forward. And then to just continue discussions on international logistics for support of research initiatives. In the last couple of years, I've come across lots of discussions where people want to do circumpolar research, and the logistics involved in doing that are quite complicated. And so working with the COMNAP Science Facilitation Expert Group would be one way in which we might be able to make really good progress on those kinds of issues. And then, of course, we have the Southern Ocean Decade activities coming up, IPY5, and other kinds of initiatives that will be very important for us to be looking at the logistics side of things to see how those can be implemented. So thank you very much. I have put the SCAR website and my email address in the upper left of this slide. Please feel free to get in touch if there's any questions that if there are any questions I can answer, or if there's anything I can help you with. I'm not sure if I'm attending this meeting virtually. I submitted these slides quite a while ago. And so if I'm here, I'd be happy to take any questions.